Greetings from First Christian Church. We're in the choir room, and joining me is my colleague and a fantastic violinist, Byron Hitchcock, who's our soloist for this series. We have a really wonderful program, but I wanted to go to Byron right away because he's brought us an excellent piece of music by Hans Gál. For most of us musicians, we only know Hans Gál in that he did the definitive editions of the Brahms symphonies. And so he's always up there in the right-hand corner whenever we play a Brahms symphony, but nonetheless, he was a fine composer in his own right. Byron, how did you come across this piece of music?
Well, you and I were starting to talk about maybe getting together for a project, and we knew we wanted something with string orchestra, because that's what you're doing. And so I sort of took it as a project I've been wanting to get to know more modern music, and I've been wanting to find the masterpieces of modern music, which I feel like are so easily ignored today, while people think, it's modern, I don't want to hear it. It's going to be brash, there's going to be something too experimental about it, I don't want to hear it. And I feel like there's this treasure trove that exists, and I just need to find it a little bit. And I couldn't be more happy and surprised to find the Gál, which just sounds beautiful all the way through. It sounds like it could have been a masterpiece in the 19th century, but it was written in 1939. So basically, I came across it through a book full of modern music, and I went through and I listened to a variety, and this, the opening of this concerto, in the first 5 seconds, you're just bathed in this nice cello melody, and you're like, yes, this is what I want.
It's interesting. I mean, I think it's based in dance, clearly. There's so much dance in there, and that opening feels like a sort of lovely saraband in a way.
Fascinating.
And then, but there's the rigadoon, obviously dance, the fast thing, and there's a little bit of jazz. This is 1939. I hear just a little bit shades of Gershwin in there, a few blue notes as well.
Yeah. Lots of blue notes.
And Gál, he had that gift of being one of those people like Marion Bauer, who was one of the other composers on this project. That we'll talk about her later. But Hans Gál had a gift of sort of working with everybody. He was connected to everybody. And yet his own voice, somehow we just overlook his music, and it's really too bad. This is not only an incredibly challenging piece, but it's so fun. By the end, it's like you practically want to get up and dance, And so the struggle has been, and actually in some ways this is a perfect piece for you, because you have this lightness of touch that it's so effortless for you. I know you have to practice and everything, but it feels so effortless.
Well, I used to be a ballet dancer.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I would have guessed just looking at you. But yeah, it's like all this, dance music, and you have this ability to just dance and just fly. When I heard you on the practice audition and the Mendelssohn Scherzo, which is on every audition, the Midsummer Night's Dream Scherzo, it was just, you could just see the fairies in the forest dancing around. It was just perfect. You just do that so well. And so this piece, I think, just really works for your playing as well. Plus, you have that incredible, you'll hear that incredible intonation in the high registers, where it's like, it doesn't feel like you're ever within a mile of getting out of tune. And I know that takes a lot of work, but you project that it's easy.
It's very difficult in this piece. It's very difficult. I've had to spend a lot of time with it, and still daily negotiating some of the harder shifts. He has all kinds of double stops and triple stops and huge leaps on the violin, and the most delicate playing is sometimes on a double stop super high, and it's just so hard to get everything to speak well. So I really appreciate that compliment.
Well, and I just want to double check, did Gál completely compose the cadenzas as well? Because that's where a lot of the biggest technical difficulties come in.
For sure.
Yeah. And he did them all himself.
He did them all. He must have been a violinist somehow, because there's bouncing strokes, there's all these harmonics and left-hand pizzicatos, and you can't come up with that stuff and have it actually be possible on the violin unless you spent some real time studying it.
Yeah. Or at the very least, that's the reason I asked, is maybe if he ran some things. I do this all the time. I'll PDF something and I'll send it to a violinist friend. Is this possible? Can I get away with this?
And he might have. I don't actually know the history, but it all seems so ingrained in the in the Gál style that it's almost like Brahms with Joachim, where Joachim wrote the cadenza, but it sounds just like Brahms wrote it,
Right. And again, I thank you not only for this piece, which has been an absolute joy, and the orchestra seems to love it, but I thank you as well for stepping in on relatively short notice. We had to reprogram, for the folks at home, we had to reprogram the entire season because of COVID, and it's really been wonderful in a way because we've explored so much string repertoire that we wouldn't have gotten to. And so all of these soloists who are playing with us this season had to step in earlier than expected to fill a solo role. And I think I was eyeing, maybe a Mozart concerto for you at some point or something.
Yeah.
And this is a huge leap from that, and you had to learn it pretty fast.
Yeah. So. I remember when we were talking, I brought up Vivaldi Four Seasons as a fun potential option. You said, we're already doing that. We're doing that the concert before this. And so we had to get a little more creative, and that's been just the biggest joy.
Well, and to be fair, we had that scheduled on the season anyway, but we moved it up. We moved it sooner. So even those two soloists, because Jake was a solo on the American seasons, the O'Connor American seasons, and Elisa was solo on Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and did things I've never heard before. She was incredible.
Yeah.
And but they both had to agree to move it earlier.
Yeah.
And so I thought they were very gracious to do that. And that was probably our most popular project so far this year. String players seem to be really in love with this programming, though. And none of it's mine, actually. Jake has been. We need to do the Mozart Divertimenti, so we're doing 3 this season on concerts. I think it's 1, 4, and 6,
Good
or
man.
2, 4, and 6. We're doing 3 of his Divertimenti. The little symphonies. I forget the. Oh well, I'll remember later. But so we have these 3 Divertimenti. We're doing the B flat this time. Wonderful music from a very young Mozart. He was only 17.
Yeah.
And you get not only sort of the maturity there, it's starting to really form, but you also get still that sort of boyishness, which I really enjoy. And it's very short. It's like 10 minutes.
Both of which link up well with the Gál. I feel like that is excellent programming.
Yeah. And then we have Marion Bauer, and she is an American composer who was also just linked to everybody. She helped so many of the important composers of the time. She was widely respected, a very fine educator as well. And she did a lament on an African theme that she originally put into a string quartet, and then turned and decided to orchestrate the movement for strings, similar to the way Barber handled his adagio for strings. It was originally for a string quartet, and then he orchestrated it later. So that piece is in the works, and that comes to us from Pam Chadden as a recommendation, and it's a wonderful piece. If you've never heard of Marion Bauer, well, you're in for a treat. And we cap off the program with music of Leoš Janáček. And this is a recommendation from Elisa. It is his Idyll suite. 7 movements, all short dances, and really delightful. And for the folks at home who might be thinking, oh boy, Janáček, I've heard a couple things that are kind of modern of Janáček. I've never heard any super modern Janáček, but this is very early. We usually only hear for Janáček, we usually only hear like the opera Yennefer, and then we go from there, and all of his works from there. And it's unfortunately a short list because the repertoire has been narrowed too much, I think. And so we overlook pieces like this where we have a young Janáček. I think he was 22 when he composed it, 22, 23. And it sounds very much like Dvorak. It's very clear he's influenced by Dvorak. But 7 really lovely movements and a real challenge for our strings. So it's been a wonderful detour this season doing this different repertoire. And we hope all of you at home really love it. Byron, thank you again for this piece. Thank you again for agreeing to jump in and come to us much earlier than we expected, and to do a piece that you weren't familiar with. But it sounds, in rehearsal, it sounds like you are in absolute command of this new piece under your fingers, and we're so lucky. So
yeah, thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.